supposed to be a professional.
So where do you even begin with Crackdown 3? I think I'll give it from my own perspective. I'm a massive fan of the original Crackdown, and I actually kind of enjoyed Crackdown 2 despite its many shortcomings. Crackdown 3, after being announced I think in 2014 originally, was promising the power of the cloud and 4-player co-op, which is not here. However, being part of Xbox Game Pass kind of gives a great indication of maybe where Xbox are going with their games, but as a product on its own, which is what we're going to review today, Crackdown 3 is fine. And I don't mean that in a sense of like, it's not a bad thing for a game to just be fine, but Crackdown 3 is, to me, the perfect game to show off sort of the Game Pass, in the sense that you can switch off and just sort of binge through it, which is how I played and completed Crackdown 3. Is I kind of just switched off. I put on some podcasts, some gaming podcasts, and I played through this game. So the structure of the game sort of tries to follow similarly to the first game, where there are a number of mini bosses, let's say, or gang leaders, and you create a series of objectives, which is the same thing over and over again, depending on what it is that you're, which sort of gang leader you're trying to take out. And then they appear, and then you complete a boss battle, and sometimes it's not even a boss battle. And yeah, so without really getting too much more into it, the structure of the gameplay itself, the progression of the campaign is hugely disappointing. You will go in and you will blow up a few valves, and then you do that 9 times across the map in similar looking areas, which will bring out a boss, and then you complete a series of challenges, or you beat the boss, and then that's that gang leader down. Or you go across and you free a few prisoners, which is literally just walking up to something and holding the LB button, and then you do that a number of times, and then you get the boss, and then you beat that boss. So there's no actual, let's say, set piece single player missions where story progresses and you're brought to new areas, or at least changed areas for the moment of that campaign, or that mission I should say. You're just in the world, and you just do the things, and things go on very quickly, and that is probably, for better and worse, like I said, it kind of reduces any sort of stakes being built up, or moments to change the pace, or I guess even tone of what you're doing, because it's the same over and over again. But it keeps you in the world consistently, which means you jump around so quickly, you move so quickly, and you just progress. So on top of all the missions, there's new agents to find. There's the 750 agility orbs, 250 hidden orbs. There's a number of races. There's foot races, and in the vehicle there are weapons to unlock, there are vehicles to unlock, and it just keeps, you just go, and I think that kind of helps with the bingey nature of it. Things never let up, and I think that's one of the biggest positives I have about this game, is if you want to be going 100 miles an hour for 6 hours straight, you can go for 100 miles an hour for 6 hours straight, and the game lets you do that. And I think that's one of the best aspects of this, because you don't get a lot of games that feel like this. It feels a product of, I was going to say a product of its time, but it's not a product of its time. It's a 2019 release. It feels like a product of the original game, which is over 10 years old now, where things just felt more arcadey and sort of less substantial. So don't go in here expecting like a big first party title that sort of brings you on this journey and makes you feel certain things and is the big evolution of the series, because it isn't. It's more of possibly what you wanted, but also less of what you're expecting. And all this impression is of the single player. God, there's a multiplayer as well here. I didn't capture any footage of it because I didn't play too much of it. It promised the power of the cloud, and the single player has no destructibility. The multiplayer does, but it's very limited. I think it's only 3 maps, I believe, 2 modes, It lacks any real visual style that you see here in the single player campaign, which I'll get to now in a second, which is the other main thing I really like about this game. But yeah, the multiplayer is such, it feels like they kind of just had to fulfill this to show that the power of the cloud is worth investing in. And man, they could have done so much more with it and they didn't. Like, I mean, to me it's even like it's not even as good as something like Red Faction Guerrilla, which launched a decade ago as well. It's just not worth your time. Just stick to the single player, and the single player is fun, but it is short. I believe it took 6 to 8 hours to do everything, because like I said, you can, if you want to go 100 miles an hour, you go 100 miles an hour and the game will let you, and that sense of freedom is sort of rare as well in these games, and that sense of speed is rare as well. But the other part I do really like about the game is that sort of neon soaked city. It's sci-fi, cyberpunk-ish, but yeah, especially at the night time, all the lights glow and sort of bounce off the water soaked ground or any sort of pool that's around, and I really like the look of that. The footage here is from the PC version. Surprisingly, the Xbox One version doesn't look as good as I thought it would, and it's locked at 30 frames a second, where I just put it on my PC, and even though this footage here is in 1080, I was able to hit 4K 60 no problem. It runs really well. I think it looks nice. I think the PC version in particular looks pretty good, but surprisingly the Xbox versions don't. But yeah, it is just the best analogy I can give is it's one of those things you turn on Netflix and you're like, hey, what's this? I'll stick it on. And you stick it on and you're on your phone, or you're playing a game, or you're half paying attention to it, and that's alright, because that's enough, because it's as mindless as it needs to be, that you don't need to follow to sort of know what's going on. You'll never feel lost if you don't. And it's just a bunch of checklists to do. You go do the checklist, have a bit of fun doing it, and you move on. Like, it's not a game that you're going to remember. It's not a game that's going to have, it's not going to be like the first Crackdown, where it sort of set so many trends for the genre, for the open world genre. It's not going to do that. It's just a bit of fun, a bit of an obligation in some senses, but also it's just, yeah, just a bit of enjoyable fun, mindless for a few hours, and that's it.